So, we talk about the path to enlightenment, and we've gone through a journey. We've gone through India Part 1, India Part 2, India Part 3, and we're in India Part 4. And if you recall the journey, it was about the arrival. And then it was about the storm that we were involved in, the greatest natural disaster of that area. And then we were talking last week about the exodus of moving out through the Himalayas and coming to that place. And so when we left last week, I had gone and left my partner Naranjan. I was now away from the group. I was totally on my own, and I was in New Delhi at a hotel. And what I came to understand was the next day, which was a free day before I would fly out, I would take advantage of that because it was my birthday. And so I arranged to have this tour where I hired a private cab driver, cost me $30. I hired a private tour guide, cost me $30, and I was going to spend the day going to the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is roughly about a 5-hour car ride in India. That doesn't mean it's like 300 miles away. It means it's like 25 miles. You're following the drift. No, it's more further than that. But in India, the traffic is so incredible different. You never know. There are no street lights. There's no rules. Everything goes. It's absolute chaos, and it is absolutely organized because they flow with an energy. So that morning I got up and I had a great breakfast and I went outside. My cab driver was there. He introduced me. He spoke sort of half English, half Hindi, and so it was always a challenge. And so we get in the car and we're going through India or through Delhi, and that took about 2 hours. And now we got on a highway, a real highway, and it was great. So we're going along and there's not much that we can talk about. But I had my iPod or my iPhone with me, and I plugged in and I put on some Krishna Das. And I was jamming away to some Indian chants, really high-level Indian chants. And my cab driver is looking at me like, what's going on? So what I did is I unplugged one of my headphones, and he gave it to him. So for the next 2 hours, I had a headphone on, he had a headphone on, and there we are going to Krishna Das. And what was really cool is because it built an energy so that the trip was there. It was a happy energy. It was a joyful energy. And we're going along, and then all of a sudden we come to Agra, which is the city where the Taj Mahal is. And as we got to Agra, everything changed. The whole energy changed. I put down my thing because he had to focus because it was this again. And we got back to extreme poverty. The poverty that you see in India is everywhere present. There's filth. I can't even begin. The contrast is undescribable. And we're there and we're going and we're stuck in these traffic jams, and finally we get to this huge crowded interchange, and he says, okay, that's your guide. And I looked, and this young man came up and he says, I'm your guide. And I didn't know anything. I trusted. So I met this guide, and the next thing you know, we're going into the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal, when you see this, is the most incredible sight in the world. It's like this huge marble monolith that just lifts up. And it's got 4 spires on the outside that are not in the picture that you see there. And they're built at 2 degrees leaning out. But the 2 degrees, when you get to the top of them, looks like they're tilted really a lot, but it's only 2 degrees. And the idea was if anything would ever happen, they wouldn't collapse inside on the actual palace. And so when you got there, you got to see all the intricacies. He took you through all the rooms. You saw the incredible detail in the marble. Everything geometrically was lined up in ways. There are outside temples off to either side, and they're all in a perfect line. You can't even imagine that this was done so many thousands years ago, and yet it was perfect. It was beyond anything that we produce today. And so you were there in awe. You were like really feeling the divine connected with you. You're saying, oh, this is why I went to India. This is the experience I thought I was going to have, unlike what I got before. And so we finished this tour. And the guide says to me, Lee, I want to take you someplace. I'm not thinking, I'm trusting my guide. The next thing you know, he says, get on this scooter. Well, his brother comes up. He's got a moped. And he's on it, my guide's on it, and I'm on the back of that. So there are 3 grown men on a moped. Can you even imagine that? It blew me away. So I'm on the moped. The next thing you know, we're not just going into the Taj's gifts place. We're going down into Agra, down these streets, into this area that is worse than the worst area of Delhi's that I saw. And we're doing this about 20 minutes, and I'm going, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. Contrast is really interesting here. Contrast is really interesting here. You know, I'm sort of in my mind, I'm doing my spiritual practice. I'm saying, it's not bad, it's just contrast. It's not bad, it's just contrast. Well, the next thing you know, I'm asked to get out. And so I hop off, and he says, let's go in here. And I go in there, and it's like I shared before, it's like there's rows. All the streets are lined with like garages with old doors, and it looks like they've been rusted out and been like that for thousands of years, and there's filth everywhere. And you go in, there's a glass door that you open, it's air-conditioned, and there you have all of the most magnificent marble carvings you have ever seen in your life. And I'm sat down in this plush chair, and the next thing you know, the person who's the owner comes over, and all of his servants start bringing things over, and he starts telling the intricacies of these pieces, And I'm sitting there, this is fascinating. And something inside me says, you really need to buy something. You're like in the bowels of the city. You don't know how you're getting out. You're really I'm not a trinket guy. If you ever get to meet me and know me, I'm not about trinkets. But I found my beautiful wife loves turtles. Well, I found these beautiful matching turtles. And so I began to negotiate. And I negotiated, and we came up what we thought was a fair price. After we did that, he gave me an elephant as a gift because it was my birthday. And then he says, oh, because you're such a good man, I'm going to give you this other gift, yada, yada. And so I said, well, this is wonderful. Okay, get back on the scooter. 3 of us men on the scooter with a big bag now. So you've got the driver, the guide, the bag, and Lee. Now, I don't have much of a tush, but half of it was not on the bike. So we proceed now to go further into the ghetto. Further into the ghetto. And I'm going, oh my God, I thought I bought enough. We go in, and they said, now you got to go in here. Well, I don't really want to. He says, no, you got to go in here. So I go inside, same scenario, the same outside. You go inside, luxury beyond anything you've ever seen. You would never know it possibly existed. I mean, the floors are marble, half the walls are marble. They've got all these ornate decorants on the wall. It is absolutely gorgeous. Next thing you know, the owner comes over, pulls out, it's a jewelry store, and they're really marketing the star sapphires. They're really marketing. They're showing me the intricacies of how when a light hits the star sapphire, a star shows up. It'll either be a 4-point star or a 6-point star. And then he starts showing me the pendants, the earrings, the rings, and he says, if you really love your wife, you will want her to glow. Now, my wife is not a big jewelry person, so I find a very simple, elegant black sapphire that has a star in the center with the gold around it earrings, and I buy them. We go outside, and he says, I want to take you one more place. And I looked at him, and I said, no, we're done. He said, no, one more place. And I said, no, look at the time. I said, we're done. Take me to my cab. And I was very firm. In India, the thing I've learned, if you're not firm, they think that's negotiating. They think that means yes. You have to be very firm. You have to say no. And so I said no. So off we go now, okay? Scooter driver, guide, 2 bags, and Lee. And we start going for 20 minutes. We're going in and out, and we come to this huge area again. He says, okay, get off here. Your cab driver will find you. And I said, no. Put my hand on the bike. And I said, I am not leaving. You find my cab driver. You're my tour guide. I'm not leaving this bike. And he said, no, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. I said, no, you don't understand. You go find my tour driver. So I stood there and waited. 20 minutes, they were gone. All of a sudden, the 2 of them are coming with my cab driver and another man. The next thing I know is I'm in the midst of a circular discussion that is getting very heated. I can't understand a word because it's all in Hindi. It turns out that the guy that I didn't know was the boss of the cab driver who said that these people, this wasn't even my tour guide. This was not the guide I was supposed to be matched with. And then he took my things and he said, let me see them. And he says, this is fake. This is fake. This is worth This is worth $20, and this may be worth $10. Now, I've spent about $800. He said, we need to call the police. And I looked at him and said, it's 5 o'clock. It's a 5-hour ride back to Delhi. I have a 5 a.m. flight. I'm going home. I don't care about the police. And they said, no, you've got to do this. We've got to do this. I said, no, I'm going home now. And I got into the cab, and we proceeded to go. And the whole way home for 5 hours, the cab driver was going, please don't tell the management at the hotel. Please don't tell the management at the hotel. And I said, don't worry about things. Everything will work out as it needs to work out. Everything will be perfect. And so I finally get back to the hotel, and I give the cab driver what he's due. I did tip the cab driver. And I then went into the hotel, and the manager says, the general manager walks up and says, so how was your trip? I said, sit down. You're going to buy me dinner. I actually said that, you're going to buy me dinner. I sat down, and I called the waiter over. I ordered some dinner. I said, let me tell you the story. I said, this is what you matched me up with. Because I didn't want anyone else to have that same experience, so I was going to say it. And I did it as nicely as I could. So I want you to know that that was the experience there. And I released the attachment. If I lost $800, I didn't care. You see, it's not about money. It's not about things. It's about what is life. I'll take you a little further. I came home. And when I got home, a couple days later, I went to a jeweler that I know, and I had the jewelry appraised. And the jeweler said, you paid a fair price. I went to a marble expert in Dallas, and I said, would you please look at these? Are these real, and is this worth this amount of money? He said, you paid a very fair price. You see, what had happened, and I didn't know, was that the guy coming in was upset because he wasn't matched with the other guy who would have taken him to his jewelry store and his marble shop. And so he was not getting his fair due. But I knew inside it was okay, but it was time to leave. So I came back to the United States. And let me tell you, this is the greatest country in the world. Can I be more clear? Because while we may not perceive with everything that's on the news that we have the freedom that we desire, we have more freedom than any place in the world. We have the freedom to think differently. We have the freedom to think new. And so as I've processed now for almost 2 months, what are the lessons that I went there with, and what did I come back with? Now, this is the meat of the story. Everything else is just fluff that I've told you till now. It's just to get you interested. The meat of the story was I went there with the idea of being unattached, to learn what does it mean to live in non-attachment. Well, I went there for the purpose of meditating in silence for 16 days. In the midst of it, I got caught up in a natural disaster where the silence disappeared, and we were refugees, and we were hiking through the Himalayas. We were living with no electricity. We were living as the poverty, as a refugee would in a country like that, and yet we're in bliss because we were steeped in our meditation. We were steeped in our spiritual practice. I understood that there is never a void in the universe. The second you release something, something else must come in. There can never be a vacuum. So when I left my suitcase with everything that I brought to India other than what was on my back, I knew that the universe would bring back, and I was not attached that I left my favorite pillow, my favorite meditation cushion. I didn't care. I had to lose that attachment. I had to lose the attachment that I didn't feel the connection with God through meditation. But here's the beauty of it. I got the experience of oneness through everything else at a deeper level than I could have ever had in meditation. Because the key that happened for me was this. Being silent is wonderful. Getting into peace and stillness is wonderful. But we are humans, and we are meant to be in the world. We are meant to interact. We're meant to co-create together. And by doing that through all of this, I got to experience God differently. I got to see God as the poorest of the poor. I got to see God in the people trying to make a living by conning you out of things. I got to see God in the simplicity of the food. I got to see God, that God is flexible. That this God energy is always flexible, wanting to do more and more and more. I got to understand another important lesson. The clarity that you seek is within you. It's not within a guru. It's not within a religious teaching. It's not within what the media says. It's not within the Pope. It's not within the president. The power that you're seeking, the clarity is right within you. We just have to listen. And when we listen, we'll hear it, and it will be different for each person here. Can I be more clear about that? It will be different for each person here because we were never meant to be alike. We were meant to be unique because for God to create two of the same thing, do you think God's boring? Do you think this infinite intelligence would ever want two people to do the exact same things? Or would he want everything, 7 billion people on the planet, to do it their perfect, unique way so that it could experience everything? I think the clarity also came is that we have to go within to claim our power, and we have to look at the people in our lives and let them claim their power. So that while I was responsible for what I was experiencing, I was not responsible for anyone else. That became very clear to me. So when I came home, I am not responsible for my wife's happiness. I am not responsible for my son's happiness. I'm not responsible for your happiness. Only you are. You're responsible for your own happiness. No one can fill that void but you. That's the interesting thing, because no one can read your mind. There's no possibility that anyone can possibly read what you're thinking. The only person who can is you. So if you're in relationship with your parents, with your children, with a partner, and you expect them to know what you're thinking, why do we have a 50% divorce rate? Because we expect our partner to be the beat-all, end-all, void-all filler. And it's impossible. It can't happen. The only reason we're in relationship, and this really became true for me, is that we're here to support and grow each other. That is it. The only reason we interact with people is to support and grow each other. So I have a partner, a wife that's been with me for over 40 years. The only reason we're still together is she supports me and is growing me, and I'm supporting and growing her, helping her grow. I'm not doing it. The key thing is you can set an intention there, and this is what I got in India. Set the intention. It can be joyful. Set the intention. It can be easy. It does not have to be difficult as people talk about. Relationships are hard if you believe they are. Relationships are a lot of work. If you believe they are, go back to Jesus. What did he say? It is done unto you as you believe. So if you're constantly believing relationships are difficult, guess what? If it's hard to find a job, guess what? If you can't have it your way, then you don't love yourself. You see, you can have anything you want. It may not come to you the way you're expecting. You see, the second you set and tell God how to do something, you tell the power within you to do it, you're limiting God. Because God has an infinite way of bringing things through. And so when you surrender into the power and you say, this is my declaration, and I'm going to allow it to happen, but with every step you take, you're moving in the direction of it. You don't have to have every step outlined in advance, but you're always making a movement in that direction. And when you're making a movement in that direction, when you're going in the wrong direction, you'll feel that your emotions go, ugh. And then you reverse and move your direction so that you feel good. You see, your emotions are your guidance system. They're leading you in the past. So India was about that. So through all this contrast, I followed my emotions. Did they tell me it was good? Did I feel bad? If it wasn't, you sort of move. Because it's never a straight line. Spiritual practice allows us to stay aware. This is why I teach this over and over and over, week after week after week after week after week. Spiritual practice, meaning meditation, you silence and quiet your mind, so that you can release the monkey chatter. And then I go into prayer. And prayer is not, we teach spiritual mind treatment, which is a form of prayer. It's affirmative prayer. We teach affirmations. We teach gratitude journal. We teach all of these things. But I'm going to give you the simplest thing about prayer. Prayer is anything you do that is directing your consciousness towards something you desire. And when you're directing your consciousness towards something you desire and you keep doing it, pretty soon the unconscious mind of yours and the conscious mind of yours become in alignment. And you see, you have to bring that unconscious mind in. That's why prayers don't demonstrate immediately, because you've got this whole 98% of your mind out here that's got contrary views in it that you brought with you from all of your life up to this point. So you're constantly feeding that new things in that direction, and as it becomes more and more acclimated toward what you want, you start to feel the demonstration happening. You start to see your life change. And then when you've shifted 51%, now you're really clear in the movement. But the key thing is, you can't stop at 51%. You got to keep moving. So many times in this idea of new thought and what we teach, people back away when they're just there. You see, Jesus said it so clearly. He says, pray unceasingly. It means you don't ever get it and stop praying. You're constantly praying for what? For your connection and oneness, knowing that you are the power and knowing that you are moving forward. And when you're constantly holding that favorite affirmation, divine wisdom guides and directs my every thought, word, and action. Think about that really deep. Divine wisdom, infinite power within me, within the whole universe, guides, and not only guides, it directs, meaning it's forward movement, my every thought, word, and action. Because unless your thought, words, and actions are aligned in the direction of what you want, it's not a belief. If it's not a belief, it will not be done unto you. Here's an interesting one, the law of attraction. I have a lot of people say, Lee, I'm focused on this, but I didn't get this job, I didn't get this job, I didn't get this job. The law of attraction always gives you exactly who you are. It always gives you. The thing is, we forget to understand that there's a part of us we don't see. It's that unconscious mind. We don't realize it's there. But we can know what's there by what's in front of us and what's in our life, because our lives are mirroring to us what our consciousness is. Because as quantum physics so clearly states, consciousness is the ground of all being. And within consciousness, there are infinite possibilities that are existing everywhere at the same time. And as consciousness points at one, it then demonstrates that. That's what science is coming to understand. It's not a possibility, it's a probability. It's for sure if you focus on it enough. The other one is to be in the moment, to never live in the future and never live in the past. You can't change the past. And you're not going to be in the future till you're in the moment in the future, so you're never there. The perfect time in your life is right now. This is the only time that you've got, is this very moment. In this very moment, when you are so centered there and you're loving yourself, you're going to feel the sense of peace, a sense of love, a sense of joy, a sense of connection, because you're not judging against the past and you're not looking to the future thinking that the present is not enough. You see, you have been creators all of your life. And up to this moment, you've created the life that you have right now. And the power that you are has worked perfectly. When we embrace that and we know that, now we can take a step forward and say, what is next? What do I desire to create next? And we move in that direction. You see, we never get it done. We're always going to be creating more. So put aside the idea, when I get there, this will happen. When I get there, this will happen. When I have this, this will happen. No. Be the happiness, be the joy, be the peace, be the wisdom in this moment. For when you do that, you will experience what your heart has been calling you to experience. You will experience an inner joy that cannot be rocked by anything, that cannot be shaken, because you will truly understand that what you've been seeking has always been within you. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.